Hey, welcome, dear friends. So let's let a few people know that we're live here. Well, you know, today I was looking over the internet and checking out people that have these born-again experiences. I noticed this one guy is going around the world, and he's laying hands on people and causing these, this kind of a transformation in people speaking in tongues and stuff like this. But I noticed something looked a little bit, I don't know, a little bit manipulative about it. So anyway, I just did a little research. And I was researching people that had these born-again experiences and see what happens afterwards in their lives and stuff like this. And so I came across people that they call it deconverting. They deconverted. And so I was reading about that they all received the Holy Spirit, had some kind of God experience. And practically all these testimonies I read, people really liked what they were experiencing, their relationship with God. It was really a good thing. But then they ran into some snags, and this is these religious snags. They had this experience of God, and then this religious stuff comes in where, about hell and the teachings about hell. And like you got to be like really repressed, and you can't be natural. You can't have sex, or you got to do it under certain conditions, and just all kinds of stuff like that. And they couldn't reconcile that in there, and so they thought, well, we have to throw out the whole thing. Forget about a relationship with God, and because I can't follow all these rules and repressions and stuff like this, and so they just got rid of the whole thing. And this just a lot of people like this, see? And they come across basically their reason starts to kick in, and they start to say, question like, is God really like this? And this is one of the things that one Baptist minister gave up Jesus and following God because of this one verse he couldn't reconcile. Right? And so he said, this is so unreasonable, I just can't accept it. And I tell you, I know there's a lot of people like that. Right? So let's use this verse as a springboard for this discussion to show that you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You don't have to throw out God or Jesus or Krishna or everything because of this other part that actually really doesn't need to be there so much. And we're going to discuss this. So when there's a merger between Christ and Krishna, and basically the theology in Vaishnavism, it's like therapy for Christians. It really helps a lot. So we'll talk about that now here a little bit. So let's take that verse. So it's John 3:16, very famous verse. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Okay? And throughout God, okay, I can just paraphrase it because I can't remember it verbatim. Okay, so just paraphrase. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. See, and that the whole world will be saved through him. God didn't come to condemn the world, he came to save the world. Okay? So basically, most Christians interpret that as saying, that I know, they interpret this, see, God gave his Son to be slaughtered, on the cross. See, to forgive the sins of all mankind. See? Now, it's like saying, well, this Jesus couldn't have forgave the sins of everybody unless he was slaughtered by his Father. So many Christians come to this point. They say this is totally unreasonable. This is, say. So I think we need to look back at the background of where this story came from, and what religion it was from, and it's basically from the Jewish religion. See, the story that God had to slaughter his son so that we could be free of sins. See, so the Jewish, it is really instilled in their faith that you have to have a sacrifice. They would be sacrificing animals, and shedding blood, and in this way, the sins would be forgiven. So some Christians, or maybe a lot of them now, are thinking, is this really a reasonable God? He has to kill his son like this? Okay. Now, the way we can start reaching a reasonable understanding of God is merging the Siddhanta, or the theology of the Vaishnavas, which is, you could say, Krishna consciousness, with the theology that is presented in the Bible. Okay, so in the theology of Vaishnavism, there's also a God there, a Savior. There's Krishna, there's Lord Chaitanya, there's Lord Ram. Okay, so the difference is they didn't have to die to save anybody. See, so if you look at that, this death of Jesus is more of a cultural thing. You can understand that actually, if Jesus was here, he didn't have to die to forgive people's sins. The main thing he said, even before he went to the cross, he said, "Those who believe in me will be forgiven of sins." See, even before he hit the cross, he said, "Those who believe in me will be forgiven of sins." Now, this is a more clear understanding that's presented in Vaishnavism. Hey, Rajiv, welcome. See, in Vaishnavism, they talk about that the Lord and his devotees, those who are advanced spiritual beings, they come from the spiritual dimension. Okay? So they come from the spiritual dimension, and they know what's going on up there, and they know what's going on down here in this world, and they preach about how to raise consciousness to get up there. See? And the main thing is to meditate on those who are transcendentally situated personalities. Their consciousness, like Jesus taught, this is a reasonable concept, I'm not of this world. See, his consciousness was transcendent to this human-type existence, in that sense. So, and so in Vaishnavism, they teach, just by meditating on transcendental beings who are tuned in to the ultimate relationship, which is with God. And so anyway, this gets into other truths that are taught in Vaishnavism that reconcile many fundamental concepts like hell, the devil, stuff like that, because they have a more clear understanding of this kind of thing here, these kinds of truths. Okay, so God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Now, when you understand Vaishnavism's teachings, it teaches, by the way, God is not just, he's one God, but he has many different incarnations according to his particular missions that he does here in this world, which is always to raise consciousness, to help establish our soul's relationship with him, because that's where the power is, that's where the love is, that's where the happiness is, true happiness is. So he takes various forms. He comes as Jesus, he comes as Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Ram. See? So this concept that God is, in the Jewish thing, nobody even really knows who God is, but it's more clearly defined in Vaishnavism, that he has more than one particular form. See, so now this thing, his only begotten Son. Now that Vaishnavism puts a more reasonable understanding that God is unlimited and he could actually take on unlimited forms. See, so this is a more reasonable understanding. And see, the people that come to this reasonable understanding of God can be, if they're ready to throw out the whole thing, they say, hey, well, maybe God is reasonable. Maybe God is more, has not as many limitations as the New Testament has put on him. Okay? So there we have, God has got more than one form if he wants. Why not? God can do anything. I mean, we have all these different bodies here. People have different things. Why can't he have different forms? See, so in those who have realized a real deep level of understanding of who God is, they say, yeah, he's taken these different incarnations. Because of their advanced spiritual consciousness, they can identify the symptoms of God when he takes in these different forms. Okay? And often there's revelations that come too, and the Lord reveals more about who he is and stuff like that. Okay? See, okay, so there we go. Now we have a more unlimited God. He can take as many forms as he wants. And now that it comes down to his only begotten Son, well, that's debunked in Vaishnavism. The Lord can have so many sons. As a matter of fact, it goes along, it just clarifies what it said in the New Testament, in the first chapter of the book of John. Jesus, people who accepted and received Jesus, they were born of the Word. See, Jesus spoke. Realizations, revelations that God gave him, right? He spoke. See? And then people heard, they listened. See? And those who listened, they had a spiritual revolution in themselves, a spiritual awakening. See? And they were born, he gave them the power to become sons of God. See? The power to become sons of God. See? By the Word, born of the preaching, the speaking of a person who is in touch with the Lord through the bond of devotion and love like this. We can get into that subject too. I mean, this is a very amazing, great merger that's starting to happen just from this video here. See? It's making God more reasonable. He's not a lunatic. He's not a limited person like we are. Like our conception of God, we project out and we make it often the scripture like that. Say, well, you see, God is very limited. He can only have one Son, and he's only got one form, and that form we don't even know what it is, but we just I don't know what we do, but we just try to accept it as long as our logic and our reasonable mind doesn't kick in, and people can keep suppressing us from thinking critically about all these things. So we'll just try to hold on to this, these false arguments and conceptions as long as we can. Okay? So anyway, this Baptist minister said, people, this causes all this conflict and different voices in people's heads. It's not really. People, you think they're actually believing in Jesus? Really? A lot of people, they have these different voices. There's some doubts in there, and then they're holding to this voice. And it's kind of interesting because it's like he was saying, it's like these different beliefs scrambling to control the direction of where we're going. It's these different voices and all of this stuff. Not one voice, many different ones. Yes, I believe. No, I doubt. I believe. No. And they're like fighting for the control of the helm of the ship of our, life stream in this world. See, Thomas the Doubter was like that. See? So sometimes the control comes in this doubting part because, after a while the doubt says, hey man, it gets control because look how unreasonable this is. God is limited, man. And he can't be. I mean, God, we're limited, but if there's a God, he must be unlimited. And what is this, one son? Here, I can have 10, 20 sons if I want, and God can only have one son? It's not even like, why, this must be unreasonable. We must be projecting something. So people have thrown out the whole thing, the baby and the bathwater. How about let's just throw out the bathwater? See? So that's why we need this merger of Vaishnavism, which is clear, wonderful revelation and realization that expands our understanding of the truth. Okay? So, how does God have more than one son? This is something to think about. Hey, Ralph, welcome. How does God have more than one son? Well, if he sends somebody whose spiritual consciousness is already evolved to the point of relationship with him, so in Vaishnavism they teach you must have a bona fide spiritual master. Okay? So a bona fide spiritual master is either someone who is sent from the spiritual world, and they come here and they already realize their relationship with God, or you're born of the words that they speak of. See? So the Lord sends often, in our Vaishnavism, he sends many of his sons. Srivas Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Haridas Thakur. These are all persons already established in relationship with him. They're all sons of God like Jesus. See? They all have the same kind of thing. Matter of fact, if you analyze from a reasonable point of view, you see the essence is the same. Jesus, who was from the spiritual world, even said, I believe that. Makes sense. It's very reasonable. Come here, he's sent here. Yeah, he's speaking so many things. People listen. They're born of the Word. Now they like what Jesus likes. And that's relating to God. See? It opens their own relationship with God. See? So in Vaishnavism teaches, it's defined that more clearly. They call it, it's a verse there, by regular classes in Srimad Bhagavatam, from a person who has realized their relationship with God. See? By regular classes in truth, hearing the words of revealed scriptures from a person who has realized them. You hear, see, and you start to get enlivened, you start to get purified. See, Jesus said, you're clean by the word I've spoken to you. See? You're clean by the word I've spoken to you. See, we're merging two giants, Christ and Krishna, together here. And what's going to be born of this is a reasonable God, not a lunatic, not a crazy, fanatic, fundamentalist thing. No, God is more reasonable than anybody. You got to meet somebody that has a relationship with the Lord, and they start to think in a more reasonable way. They're not limited by one set of scriptures created by a bunch of fishermen. And whoever, on these editors, 2,000 years, we're just accepting all these things. All of this stuff. Okay, so we need to take help from the Siddhanta and the theology of Vaishnavism to understand that God can have more than one son, that God can have more than one form, and that we can have more than one chance at this. Believe the Christians, many of them, that's another reason many Christians give up Christianity. They said, what is it? We only get one chance? There are people, they just can't accept Christ, and they have to accept Christ. They can't accept Haridas Thakur or whoever else the Lord sends. It's only Christ, and you got to accept the unreasonable conception about him. Some people just say, I just can't do it. So I have to go to hell forever and ever because I only get one chance at it, and I just can't accept this. Who's representing them? See, that's unreasonable God. Say, I'm sorry, God, I just can't, send me to hell, but I just can't accept this stuff. People get like that in Christianity. People, they're presenting a unreasonable God. See, only one. So that's why in Vaishnava's reincarnation's there. Give us chances and maybe come in at a time when there's a realized soul who is born of the Word of God from their guru, or they came here and sent here. And we listen to them, and then we're set free and become saints and, freedom bound. See? That's a reasonable God to give us more than one chance. Now, it's very unreasonable. What kind of a miser is God? No, that's our miserly conceptions we project on him. Hey, can I have a request? That music you just had on, Oh, that would be great. Just for this video here. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, okay, see, so more than one son. So the Lord either sends somebody here, like Jesus said, I was sent here. See, Narottam Haridas Thakur was sent here. He was Lord Brahma in the Vaishnava teaching. So many devotees came with the Lord. Matter of fact, when the Lord personally comes, his Father that Jesus was talking about, when he comes, he's so attractive that so many people from the spiritual world come also. And then we get all these pastimes, which are amazing realizations and revelations of truth, just waiting for these Christians to bite into. You know, a lot of them have this spirit already awakened, man. All they do is lack faith in a more reasonable God, and that God can be over there in the Vaishnavism also. You know, came as Krishna, came as Lord Chaitanya, and with his devotees, and they had these interactions that came so many revelations and realizations and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. Lord Chaitanya brought so many sons with him. So many. He has unlimited sons, God, and they're all attracted to go wherever his road show is. You even see gurus like this. You know, they go on the road and touring, and people want to go and be around that radiance of a guru. Even with Jesus, he went around, and they had 12 people wanted to follow him. Intelligent people. But also many thousands started following the radiance. So could you imagine when the Father comes? Also so many people. Actually draws them out of the spiritual world. They come and take birth, participate. Okay? See, so God is he's not just giving us one chance at it. And he's giving us a chance to come in contact with his other sons also. Because sometimes we just can't accept Christ or God presented in an unreasonable way. And that intelligent people just can't do it. Okay? That's why more intelligent people go to Vaishnavism. See? Often. Okay? And then there's a problem there too, and we'll get I don't know if we'll make it into this video. So anyway, a lot of people, they get this connection with Jesus. See, why? Because he died for our sins? Not really. You don't, if you want to think that way, to believe in him, that's fine. But that's not really, if you come to the point where you think, well, man, what kind of father is that kills his own son? Who would do that? That's another unreasonable thing. Why would you kill your own son or daughter? No, but we think God did that. Come on, man. He didn't have to do that. So take a lesson from Vaishnavism. He didn't, yeah. Haridas Thakur, he was beaten in a bunch of marketplaces for chanting, but he didn't die for the sins. He didn't have to die for anything. He was just here. Anybody who just hears about his pastimes with the Lord becomes purified. Just by remembering Jesus, just by remembering Haridas, remembering Lord Chaitanya, remembering Krishna. They didn't have to die. They're just transcendental personalities with a transcendental energy and potency to purify us. The whole point is to get to believe in them and to remember them and get purified. See? That's why the killing of God's son, its story is not in Vaishnavism, because a more reasonable God is presented there. It's kind of paradoxical, because then you can look at another one of our videos and you see this guy is totally in madness, emotional madness. But that's where all these realizations come from, and it comes from that going into the chaos of ecstasy. And coming out of it all together, more together. See? So another thing, that a lot of Christians give up God is they get a great experience. This is what I noticed. I was reading these stories, testimonies, why they deconverted, okay? Whatever that means. They left the whole thing. They threw out the baby in the bathwater, everything. We don't want anything. And they become a hedonist, See? Because Jesus just said, really, and this makes sense, just believe in me. Just worship me, believe in me. See? But religionists, they get a hold of these essential teachings, and this is in Vaishnavism too. They also do this too. And then they say, no, you can only get Jesus if you renounce everything, renounce the world, renounce austerities. And what did Jesus actually say? What's more the truth? Just believe in me, worship me. What did Krishna actually say? Well, my devotees are naturally struggling with material desires, but I just tell them, just worship me in a happy mood. Just worship, everything will come out okay. See? By tasting a higher taste, everything gets adjusted, man. See? But those who are qualified to worship the Lord like that, they get waylaid by these renunciates, yogis, Brahmins often, and they just put a big emphasis on, no, you got to, before you get God, you got to renounce and all of this stuff. These Christians that left Jesus, they were having spiritual experiences. It was amazing to say, oh man, we love to read the Bible and everything, but then we come across, we have to give everything up and, all these interpolations, or the group they're with, oh yeah, no sex, nothing, no ice cream, or, gets that in Christianity, there's places there's no ice cream, Mormons are like that, and so it's really, and it doesn't work because you just repress your nature. That's why Bhagavad-Gita says one cannot go against their nature. What good does repression do? See? So anyway, this has always been in religion. Especially when there's not the teaching that Jesus came to bring, or that the devotees of Lord Chaitanya brought. They thought, no, just worship the Lord in a happy mood. Come and be in our ecstatic association and worship the Lord like that. See, and you'll get a higher taste. And, it doesn't mean you have to renounce sex or marriage or family life and all of that. Because the main thing is God He just wants to know us. Matter of fact, that can often go against our knowing Him. People repress. I noticed that. And I tried to follow these rules and also worship God with love. Heart in the heart and all kinds of weird things happen. Repressions, depression, all kinds of stuff. So especially when you get the association of transcendental beings, and some people, they just have faith in Jesus and they start together. All you have to do is continue to worship them with ecstatic persons who are not overly repressive about stuff, and you'll be in a much better position. Your heart will be more loving, and you'll get over these things. Whatever needs to be got over. I notice this even in the Vaishnava scriptures, and it's, people, they're not perfect either. I'm telling you, man, I see it right now with a mile away, man. I see, like I was reading in Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Now this is an example of that. Beautiful book. It's glorifying Lord Chaitanya, and it's written by a householder who never, as far as we know, never gave up householder. He had a wife, he had children, he had a dog, he had all these things. He's writing this beautiful poetry, Lord Chaitanya. And then I come across this. What person wouldn't give up everything and give up their family, give up their friends and everything for Lord Chaitanya? I say, sannyasi has got a hold of editing this friggin' book, man. This wonderful book. A sannyasi came in there and interpolated it. That's what they do. They just, And I can't accept, that's not reasonable that I would think this... was it Mukunda or anyway, one of the devotees, Mukunda, I think, wrote the book, householder, had a job, everything. I would say, how can I worship this guy? He's a hypocrite. He didn't give up family life and he's telling me to do it. No, a sannyasi or somebody who is not maybe so right in their mind kind of messed it up, just like they're doing with Prabhupada's books. It's just how it is, man. It's scriptures. You got to use your critical thinking also. Don't have to throw out. I'm not throwing out everything in that book, man, but I come across this and God gives me some intelligence. Says, hey, you see, he was a householder. Otherwise, I would throw the whole thing. I can't read this book because it's got this interpolation. Well, they all have interpolations in them. It just comes with the territory. You know? Prabodhananda Saraswati's book, you know, it's beautiful glorification about all this, and then it says, you got to renounce he was a sannyasi, man, renounce everything, got everything, but I don't know if he did that or somebody else sannyasi came along and interpolates, because then it sounds hypocritical. Later on he said, you don't have to give up anything. You just have to believe in the transcendental personality, Lord Chaitanya, and you'll attain all you wish, without whether you follow rules or regulations or not, strictly. And then there's this other stuff. It's like there's conflict there. It's like, hey, wait a second, man. You know, what's going on here? See, people inherit these conflicts. Doesn't have to be. See, you got to understand God is reasonable. And if you're lucky, you meet somebody who has an intimacy with God, and they can teach these things, how to get over this stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, you just become fanatical, or you give up everything. You know, you give up God, you give up Jesus. You know, you give up Vaishnavism. So that's what happened. You know, basically we need to ultimately, if your relationship with the Lord hasn't been established, you either need to connect with somebody who's got it established from a guru person. Guru can be a minister. If your Christian minister is like a guru, if they have intimacy with God, and then the Lord will help you through them. Or you can have a bona fide guru in Vaishnavism, if you can find one, that has an intimate relationship with God. Because if they don't, they're just going to also, you got to give up everything, you got to renounce, you got to do this and get some little taste. That's just what they do, man, because they don't have the spiritual power of intimacy with God. Okay? You know, a person who has intimacy with God is a whole person. If you don't, you're not whole. You're crippled. You're crippled. If you don't have an intimate relationship with God, you're more or less crippled. Okay? It's that this is wholeness. Holiness is wholeness. Is our soul in connection and communion with the Lord. Okay? That's Jesus. He was a whole person. Okay? Those who got the Holy Spirit became whole people. Why? They listened to a person who was whole. And then those who listen to the whole people also get wholeness. See? So I'll tell you, there's a lot of whole persons, sort of whole, in Christianity, but the problem is they're holding on to an unreasonable presentation of Jesus and God and all of this stuff. So that's why it's really would be a healthy merger between Christ and Krishna consciousness. Okay? Because then you got the spirit, but then you got the Siddhanta and the theology. There's so many Christian scholars trying to figure out these things that just don't make sense in the Bible. And they just have to throw their hands up, but it's all often resolved in Vaishnavism. See? Either by the revelations that are there already, or if you meet a devotee who's a whole person who has a relationship, intimate relationship with God, you can even ask them. The revelation will be downloaded like, and then you get it. Not speculative. Just let the Lord say, yeah, the Lord knows everything. See? A whole person is thinking, hey man, I don't know anything, but the Lord knows everything, and He's my friend. I'll ask Him. Often we do that here. People ask a question or something, and sometimes I'm not sure. I said, well, yeah, okay, you ask the question, the answer will come. Later, sometimes a little later on it comes, and I type it out, and oh, wow, just what I need to hear. See? We're meant to be codependent. Codependent. You see, people think that's a bad word. Codependent is not a bad word. It's a bad word here if you're dependent on a fallen soul. Oh, good. If you're dependent on a fallen soul for your life and for your happiness and for your health and for your wisdom and all of that. If they're not whole persons, then they cannot lead you very well. See? A lot of people have that, so they come up with that. They found that this doesn't work very good. But when you have a codependent relationship with God, oh, it's all switches around. Now this is perfect. That's what everybody needs to learn, is how to establish that relationship with the Lord. See? And because that relationship is so perfect and so beautiful, because the Lord is dependent on us to work here in this world. Otherwise, he doesn't work here. It depends on His devotee's desire, what He does in the world here. See? He works through that person. He's dependent on His devotee. And the devotee is also, this is a reasonable God. God is thinking, hey man, I can't work in this. I could, but I don't. This is the way I work in this world. I work through my devotees who love me. I do stuff. I help people. I liberate them. All that through my devotees. And my devotee is he's not a lunatic. He's not an imbecile. He's not a fool. He knows. He's dependent on me. So it's codependent relation, co-pilot. The Lord is in the cockpit with the devotee. See? That's wholeness. That's holiness. Most people are going to His holinesses or her holinesses who don't have that kind of relationship yet. So that's false. That's a lie. That's speculation. That's unclarity of understanding. See? Bottom line is intelligence is to meet whole people and associate with them. See, they realize that verse really beautiful verse in the Upanishads. Out of the Lord's energy, there's so many holes are coming out. But the Lord is always the complete balance for everything. See? So the Lord is always the complete balance for everybody. See? We're lucky to be human beings because we can begin to interact with God and start to understand the language of communion with God. Animals really can't. They're kind of dependent on the energies. It's so in the abodes of ignorance there. So we're very fortunate to have a human body. That's another thing Vaishnavism teaches. We can develop our communion with the Lord. So we can go a long way with this. And I think we'll do more talks like this to help people, because they're people, they love Jesus, they've experienced that, but then because it's taught that Jesus is unreasonable, that God is unreasonable, illogical, and all that stuff, then they give him up. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to end this video, and then I think I'll start another one, and we'll just chant now. I just kind of felt like I just wanted to do something. Good, yeah, I'm glad. That was good. Yeah, if you want, you can watch it later, the whole thing. Yeah. We'll do more of these. I think it'd be very helpful for Christians, because already one Christian's coming, and he tells me, he said, oh, this is really helping my relationship with Christ. You know? I see people, they're getting close relationship with Christ, but then their reason. See, you become more logical, but you need association with those. Luckily I have association with the Vaishnava scriptures. Otherwise, it just doesn't work, and you go to other paths that aren't devotional, and that's a big problem. I see. I'll talk a little bit about that, because there are Christians doing that have a closeness, and they're actually ecstatic. They come to ecstatic state. But then their logic, see, you become more reasonable, and then you look at the scriptures, and things don't make sense, and then you start to look out for, information. You need more information, and then you're with a group of persons they don't want you to reach out or anything, and so it's a big pressure thing. I had one Christian lady come from a group, ecstatic Christian group, and she said, I can't talk to them or anything, but I need more answers. I need to check other things out, and they won't accept this or anything like this. So anyway, when people understand the essence of what Christ was teaching when he said, I am the way, the life, and the truth, and no one comes to the Father but by me, when you understand that goes to everyone that has a relationship with the Lord, because of that intimate relationship, the Lord saves people through them, gives them the proper understanding. See? But that's not just for Jesus and through Jesus, but it's through other devotees that are sent here to this world. See? So, and so we can take advantage of it. A lot of these devotees wrote books. See? So those revelations are in the book, just like revelations are in the Bible. But those revelations are also, they're building. See, they're building on other things. Then to understand about God, it's just infinite. And that's the happiness when you start to become devotional, and you get all these increasing revelations about truth, and this gives great happiness to devotees. I mean, what are you going to do in the spiritual world? There's no food there, because you don't got a material body. What are you going to get? What are you going to make? What's going to make you happy? That you got to learn here. That's what devotees teach here. Glorification of the Lord and truth sets people free. It gives them spiritual happiness. It makes God happy in their hearts. And therefore, the devotee is happy. We learn about reality. Okay? We learn about Maya, illusion. We learn about Guru Tattva, which we spend a lot of time on. See? Subjects like that. Okay, so we'll stop this here and start another video. This way it's not so long for that subject. And then we'll start another video, and then some of you guys can come on and we'll talk or chant or something. Okay, because it looks like you guys both got cameras there. Yes. Yeah, you can explain. Feed of devotional symptoms. Can you? You mean food of devotional symptoms? That didn't come out right.